Hey everybody, episode 31 is truly ripped from the headlines, but before we rip anything from the headlines, we really have to drop a beat. So, we just got hot off the presses of the summer seller check-in. And in this episode, that's what we're going to talk about. All of the cool stuff and maybe not so cool stuff and in between stuff that was announced or discussed at the summer seller check-in. There really was a lot. I really like when these check-ins have high octane content, and I feel like this one had a lot of excited, enthusiastic people in attendance. Like my highest count that I saw was like 2,600 people, right. Sellers in the chat and everything, and on the platform where they host these. And then everything that we heard from and heard about was really cool. So
right.
What do you guys think?
Today we're gonna be commenting on it. Anna obviously gonna give us the rundown because she's the most detailed.
She's the one who takes the notes.
I think me and Glenn's gonna be Chuck and Shaq. We're just gonna do commentaries.
And maybe just wrestle each other in the back until someone gets hurt.
Yeah.
So did eBay buy Whatnot yet?
Oh.
Is that what we were waiting for?
I didn't hear any announcement of that kind.
Unfortunately.
Maybe next check-in.
Maybe next time.
Maybe
All
next
right,
time.
got it. Did they buy Mercari? Just kidding. All right, simple check-in. Simple announcement.
They didn't buy Mercari, but they kind of did a Mercari.
Right.
Now you're
teaser.
That was a teaser.
Oh, that was a teaser. Oh, we should clip that. That's it. That's gonna be our 15-second clip. I already know.
Ken the editor just interrupted Ken the commentator, and I love that. Well, we are going to get to what Ken is alluding to here, but the first thing I wanted to just point out, I'm kind of going in chronological order of how we heard about things. So the first thing is just kind of a housekeeping order of business for any eBay sellers who are part of the eBay Facebook community. So the eBay for Business Facebook is being combined with the overall eBay Facebook page, and I think the change is going to take effect in August.
Correct.
Rebecca Michaels was talking about this in the beginning of the check-in, and personally, I'm not really on Facebook a lot, but I know there's a pretty large community of sellers that gets a lot of customer service support on the Facebook pages, in the groups, and communicates with each other, obviously, and directly with eBay. So I didn't see anybody being super upset about this in the chat, but I feel like they did a good job of explaining that this is going to be beneficial and that they're not doing less customer support. It's just easier to have everything in one place. And personally, I feel like a fringe benefit of that as a seller is like you kind of get to see how eBay is communicating with buyers too. The buyers are our customers, so it's good to see how eBay's engaging with them and keeping it all together.
Yeah,
so
and
I'm not against it.
No, for sure. I think, and also Rebecca promised that it was going to be the same customer service.
She did.
And so I think that was very, assuring to have that. And I think a lot of it was just people just concerned of losing the benefit, right? Because like any change, they've kind of like some of the sentiments. I was like, oh, hopefully it doesn't change, because apparently they're more tech savvy and more futuristic than I am. I don't like chat. I don't like chatting with customer service. I like to call. Glenn, what was your customer service experience? Have you chatted or
I've
Twitter?
not chatted.
Okay.
I talk to a human on call, on voice.
Okay.
I don't have any other. I don't know. Never tried it.
Yeah. I rarely have to contact customer service, and I really haven't had an issue whenever I have contacted them, just through eBay. But I know a lot of people have said sometimes they can't figure out how to contact somebody, or they can't get a hold of somebody who can fix their problem until they talk about it through the Facebook channel. obviously that's a really important lifeline. I almost said landline. Speaking of phones, right? An important lifeline for a lot of sellers.
Old school.
Yeah, right? Gosh, how old am I? It's because it's my birthday tomorrow. Spoiler alert, when we're recording this is the day of the Summer Seller Check-In, which is the day before my birthday, and it's too late for you now if you haven't, but it's also the day before the grant applications close. So if you're somehow able to time travel, you have to get your grant application in by tomorrow, which is after you're listening to this, or before you've listened to this.
So, I mean, I think overall it was a good news. I think merging it just kind of like makes it more like streamlined, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not following 2, 3, 5 different channels. But they did say
consolidated.
So it's consolidated on that, but they did also, reinforce that eBay for sellers will remain eBay for sellers on Instagram and will be your source for anything seller related news. So make sure you follow that as well.
Totally. Well, another consolidation of sorts, which I don't know, maybe this has more mixed reviews. I'll have to see what you guys think. But eBay announced to all the sellers that they're officially dropping Amex as a payment method for buyers and for sellers. Like if you pay your seller fees with an Amex card, you will have to, American Express, by the way, is what that means. But you will have to choose a different payment method before it gets phased out. And they just said, the fees are egregiously high, which I'm not surprised to hear. I haven't paid much attention to that on eBay, but I know back in the day when I was running my practice and I would, had the ability to charge people's cards, and Amex was far and away the vastly most expensive type of card. And I'd always be like, ugh, when people would pay me with one of those because I was just eating a huge fee, basically.
Right.
Like way more than any of the other cards. So I guess that's still the case.
Yeah, that's true. And I actually assumed wrong yesterday, because yesterday was like emails were sent out yesterday because people that had Amex on their payment, buyers and sellers, were sent an email that they no longer are receiving that. That's how I caught wind of the news.
Gotcha.
And then that's when I brought it up to you, and you did say that. And I was, like eBay being a big company, I was like, there's no way they'd be, not, giving more discount on fees.
Right.
Because
like
I know for a fact that the more, the more you process through those payment processing system, it's kind of like tier based and stuff like that. But it seems like it was a power struggle with two big companies and saying like, you're going to give me a discount. No, I'm not. You're going to give me a discount.
Well, and it's like there's enough other payment methods. Like so many people are using their spendable funds. They're using PayPal. They're using Venmo.
Apple Pay.
Yeah, Apple Pay.
Google Pay.
Right.
Man.
Not to mention like Visa and MasterCard and Discover. Like there are a lot of other options. So maybe Amex doesn't have the
Glenn, what was your take? Even just the changes on the payment processing system, because they used to pay money order. What did you feel when they canceled money order?
Oh man, to not have to pay the money order, it was a dream come true. This was big time breaking news. After that, you're like, what? Don't I have to send them a money order? I can get this item a lot sooner. And it comes with tracking. Just kidding. I think.
Can you imagine?
Exactly. I think now with I don't know. I agree. It wasn't really that big news. I think going through the groups, I only found out because of like different reseller groups that I'm in, and I saw that on there, and I wanted to see what the feedback was, and it didn't seem like it was a huge problem.
Yeah.
To a lot of the sellers. I mean, some people had to make the change, but I don't know. It looks like they were also talking about how like Costco kind of dropped them a long time ago as well because their fees are really high. So, eBay's not the only big company to do that, and so it's kind of like just like another thing. People are just finding their way around it and kind of going from there, and no one really seemed shocked. I guess I would say.
Right. Huh. That is an interesting take, because over time there's just like mature companies, some are really aggressive in pursuing to gain more businesses, and some are just like, nope, this is the mountain I'll stand, I'm not coming down, or this is This is what I've always charged, and I'm never gonna change. I mean, for other big businesses like Costco to not be able to buy groceries, which I'm assuming you actually spend more on Costco than on eBay.
Probably, in one trip for sure.
Yeah.
And it's like membership, right? So you're just,
Yeah.
That is really interesting. I wonder if we'll see more businesses.
Right. I mean, because I think, over
curb.
time, like, we're in the new age of, tech that even me, I have to keep up with, like, I used to only PayPal people, right? Now there's Cash App, there's Venmo, and there's Apple Pay, there's Zelle, so many different payment processing method that's coming up. But I think overall sentiment was fine, unless you're really like making or gaining over thousands of dollars in credit card points.
Right.
I don't think it would have been really
too
affected.
Upset. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, Glenn, you have to cancel your Hawaii vacation this year because you can't use your Amex
because you're
points.
not using your Amex. Yeah, exactly.
You're not spending that much on eBay, like, right.
Well, I feel like that's like a substantial change, but fortunately, it's not like to our huge like detriment as sellers or buyers, because and I really appreciate, so Dawn Block was the one talking about this, and I really appreciate that she kind of laid out, like, we've looked at it, like, we've looked at the data, and like the vast majority of people on eBay like have multiple payment methods. Like, it's not going to be like this huge shakeup.
Yep.
So that's good. And she also did a couple of other cool announcements. I loved that there's going to be a buy it now button in messaging, so that when you're messaging with a customer like that about an item, the buy it now button is going to be in the message, so that you can, if they're asking a clarifying question or whatever, then they can just go ahead and buy it right there. I feel like that's pretty cool. Like, because there was send offer sometimes in messaging before, right? So I think it's great that that's kind of more front of mind, or like I don't know. Yeah, not out of sight, out of mind while you're discussing the item. I think that's pretty cool.
I wish. I wish both were there, buy it now or best offer.
Yeah,
it should be best offer on our end, right? And then buy it now or accept on their end.
Yeah.
Oh, that could be cool. Okay, writing that down. Because, like, even when you're messaging, right? When we're messaging and I send you an offer, then you'd have to go out of the messages.
Right.
Right?
But
what if it pops up there?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, what if it's there? Like, Ken offered you $20. Kind of like a Poshmark feature that you just hit it there. Ooh.
You better be writing that down.
It's recorded, and I'm just going to forward it to our CEO. I'm just joking.
Hey, Jamie. So another thing she talked about, Ken, I was actually going to ask you if I didn't quite catch this, but by the way, you can go and replay everything from the Summer Seller Check-In on the platform where the check-in happens. So you have to be an eBay seller and like register for the events, but once you can like log into that platform, what's it called now? It just changed recently to
Ring Central.
Ring Central, yeah. It used to be called Hopin. Anyways, Ring Central. You can go into Ring Central and replay it. So anyway, that won't be available just yet, but it will be soon. But anyway, another thing Dawn was talking about was, it sounded like there was kind of a difference, or she referenced something about product reviews and seller feedback. Like, the way she worded it, I was like, oh, are they like separating those things out? And I wasn't totally clear on that. But did you notice that?
Yeah, I did see that, but I wasn't really 100%. It seems like it was just kind of like a brush through.
It was more just like the way it was worded, not like an announcement, right?
But I have noticed product reviews on some listings.
Okay, so that's
which is kind of weird because not a lot of people have used it. So there's a lot of products that doesn't have review. It's just like 0 stars.
Right. Be the first to leave a review on this item.
Yeah. So that is interesting.
All right, so we will have to look a little more into that. I think it'd be really cool if product reviews and seller feedback were clearly defined, if not totally separated. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting verbiage. But that does kind of take us perfectly into a really big topic for this check-in, which was feedback. And we heard directly from Andrea Stairs about it. And I thought that was really well said. So that's just my initial opinion about it, but we're going to dig into the details. But Glenn, since you are the OG among us, would you give us a quick history of the feedback system on eBay so we have some context for what's happening right now?
I remember when I first joined, and I remember my cousin telling me, like, did you leave feedback for that buyer? Or the opposite. Or maybe when I think I was the buyer. Like, did you leave feedback? And I was like, no. He's like, what do you mean? Like, he was disgusted that I did not leave feedback. Like, that's how
you're like a terrible buyer.
How dare you?
Yeah. That's how huge feedback was at that time. And I was like, oh, okay, I better go do that. And I remember like leaving feedback for every, thing that I bought or sold. Like, it was a huge thing.
Yeah.
Then after a while, I remember just trying to be like kind of cautious. Like, okay, if I'm a seller, I leave feedback first.
It's like, who's gonna shoot me first?
Yeah,
right?
like, can they just throw a negative feedback in there? Like, if something happened, but yet I left them a positive. Like, what do I do here? And so now it was kind of like, well, I'll leave a positive when they leave a positive as the buyer. And
it really is like a duel.
Yeah. Oh man. So that happened. Then it got into you couldn't leave the buyer a negative feedback.
Yep.
Right. But you could reply. And feedback, I think that also threw things off, because I remember going through some people's accounts, like when I was trying to buy a product, and it would be like, well, this buyer is a liar because I sent them whatever, and I'm like, oh, this is not good.
So it's like, who's
their
right
money
here,
order
right?
bounced.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was bad. And then you could now change or make alterations if it had nothing to do with, I guess, what was going on with that item. And so you can contact eBay and they could remove it on the seller part of things. So that I was happy with, because sometimes it's just feedback that just wasn't fair. But now it's just like a totally different thing that I don't know what it's going to go to next.
Yeah, I know. I did actually see a lot of people in the chat on this check-in saying, like, which I feel like I've seen since the beginning of me looking at chats on these events, but, people saying it's so one-sided, like, you should be able to leave negative feedbacks for buyers, and, that has always been really interesting to me, because ever since I don't know, I'm assuming that when I started on eBay, I just didn't pay that much attention to feedback. I really never have.
Right.
I mean, if I have more than like one negative, I'm like a little concerned about those specific instances, but just overall it doesn't like hurt my feelings about feedback. And I automate as much as I can, so I just don't pay a lot of attention to it. But I know for some people it's like a really big deal and they just feel like it's super unfair. So it was interesting to see those comments, but I think as of late for sellers, there have been bigger issues in the feedback world, right? Ken, why don't you tell us about what the issue currently has been, because you've had to deal directly with it.
I've said this to eBay employees' faces. I've been perfect until this year. So that's what I said.
100%.
And yeah, I've always been 100%. And there's like, but you're 99.9. I'm like, but
that's
that
not
0.01. Never settle, baby.
Right.
So you're telling me to settle on less perfect. But basically what happened was we've had a lot of avenues to be able to get negative feedback removed before. And I believe for sellers that are really truly doing the right thing, we were able to get rid of all of the false negative, right? Or like kind of like basically dealing with unhappy customers. I think that was like the kind of like the quickest way they could get back at you. Besides, because like, they could always claim item not as described, or like, and then you could decline, right? And then sometimes they forget to return the item, and next thing you know, it pinches their heart to leave a negative feedback or something like that, or assume that you're like the worst seller ever, that you'll never be considerate. that they would just, instead of asking nicely, they just leave you a negative feedback straightly. So we were able to, make a way before by calling. I've heard people chatting and stuff like that. But apparently, it became to a point that we didn't know that there's cases that people would just keep calling or trying to circumvent the system. What happens is they would just find all the 5, 6, 7 avenues that they could try to remove feedback, and then eventually they'll find a soft-hearted person that was like, "Oh, I guess you've called so much and you cared so much. We'll remove it for you." So that was kind of like the reason why they tightened up the feedback removal.
Yeah, because basically there were policies, right? But there was so much room for kind of interpretation and discretion that it was inconsistent. So they found that they couldn't consistently apply the policies with the current system. So they changed it.
They changed it and make it to like a one big step instead of 3, 4, 5 steps. So it's like it's either you fall under this or you don't. But they've been funny feedback saying like this seller is a scammer, and then like well, the buyer obviously felt that he got scammed, so it can't be removed. But I've been selling on eBay for 19 years. I'm not scammed, right? So it's like at that point, like
That's
have to
libel. You get
so
publicly.
So it's kind of like that, right? And then now it became a battle of response. Right now, people are like really snarky with their response, like, "Oh, you caught me! I'm a real scammer. I scam you for $2 or for $5. Now I can buy my private island and retire for the rest of my life." So it's like it became like a meme in a way, because like like somebody pointed out to me. So now I just start looking at all people's response, and some people was like, "Oh, it's like." One negative feedback said like, this beware, this seller don't accept returns, right? And that's a negative, right? And then one response says, well, it is stated in our listing, and it's not my fault that personal responsibility or accountability is not your cup of tea.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
it just kind of sucks because like at one point I just kind of stopped caring. And I think because there was not so many, but a couple of feedbacks on here that did not make sense, and eBay wouldn't remove them.
Right.
One of them had to do with them not getting their item on time from USPS that had no control over.
Right.
And because on the listing it said that it was supposed to be there by a certain date.
Right.
And I have no control over that. Even though I shipped out the next day, it didn't get there at that time, and eBay wouldn't remove this feedback. And I'm like, come on, like I have no control over what
you
they
did
do.
Everything right. Yeah.
So it's
so, and also to kind of like mix in as a product review, right? So that's one of the things that kind of cool that we could explore more, finding out when the product review becomes separate, or if it becomes separate, right? Because one of the negatives that's stuck in my account is like somebody complaining that the shoes is 2 sizes bigger than what's stated, and I'm like, bro, like we've sold it's like out of the
just objectively
out of
not
like
true.
the thousands of sneakers that we sold, like I've never fit half size. 1 size bigger is a thing. That's if you're switching brands. But when you tell me like, it's within the same brand and it's a 2 size bigger, like just admit that you bought the wrong shoe, and maybe we could have facilitated an exchange, So and then that was like, even if it was true, I as a seller doesn't control manufacturing, right? Crocs run 2 sizes bigger. But I don't complain that I have to buy a size 8 on Crocs.
Yeah.
And like I had to physically go back to Crocs, like, look, size 9's huge. But I probably need a size 8. So it's like, so I think that shouldn't be a burden to sellers. And also too, there've been, like in a way, kind of like we pride ourselves with the feedback, right? And the latest feedback, especially when somebody's trying to buy an expensive item from you and they go to it's like, if you're a very kind of like meticulous buyer and you're trying to spend $1,000 on something on this person's store, it's like, what if this is the time that he gets his second negative feedback from me. But I'm out $1,000, or you have to go through the headache process, right?
Yeah.
So that's always the thing, right? So I'd rather be perfect than have, the issue of maybe did I lose one buyer that was gonna buy that $1,500 sneaker, or something like that, in that kind of terms. But Anna, explain kind of like, I guess, what eBay is gonna be doing now.
Yeah. So
why they pulled the Mercari.
I feel like Andrea had some really good news for us about this, because, like you're saying, they basically had to make the policy and the application of the policy more simple and more strict in order to make it standardized, right? So that it's more consistent across a bunch of different situations, which, the corporate speak for that is use case, right? Mm-hmm. More like they made a standard across many use cases. So basically they tightened it all up to be like a smaller number of really well-defined use cases. And now they're going to be expanding the policies to encompass more specifically, more accurately, with kind of more nuance, and basically making the policies more complex again by adding more use cases into this structure that started out more simple and streamlined so that it could be consistent. So the goal, I think, is to keep the consistency, but add more use cases to the pile. So if you have a situation that maybe in the last few months your negative feedback would not have been removed, but it was, you perceive it's not fair to you, it was something that was out of your control, there's a good chance that that's the type of use case that's going to be added back in, so that going forward, it will be able, in those situations, a negative feedback will be able to be removed.
Yeah, one of the examples that stated there was once you decline a buyer's request to return, any negative feedback under that kind of case scenario would be removed. So, which is kind of good for seller protection, right? I mean, if I want to not have return, I should be able to not have return without the fear of getting a negative feedback. And I think it works with a lot of things, right? Especially like, because what if it becomes open box, like a sealed PlayStation? I don't want any return. A high-end sneaker or like a jewelry. What if, we kind of like, as a seller, you want to prevent the renters, the free renters.
Yeah, we are not
right?
Rent the Runway.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that was the biggest kind of like takeaway on that.
So I'm sure,
which is good that it was really fast, right? Because I think it happened in around November last year, or kind of like over the holidays,
like the change initially in feedback.
So I know, and they admitted it, that they took responsibility for it, which is kind of cool for a giant company to say that.
I think so too, and I do think that they should have communicated more directly about it when it was happening.
Yeah.
But I also wonder, like, I don't know this is me totally speculating, but I know a lot of times when they drop changes in Q4, people complain about it loudly. So I wonder if they're like, we're just not going to mention this one, like, we're just going to quietly do this. But then now it's like, okay, we probably should have made it more clear that we were doing this so that you guys weren't like, what the heck? This used to be removed and now it's the same exact situation and it's not being removed. Like, seems arbitrary, right? But I think it's always heartening to find out that something that seemed arbitrary is not actually arbitrary.
Right.
And in fact, it is the process of making the whole system better. So I was just really glad to hear Andrea say we're adding in more use cases. That's the kicker for me. And hopefully as we progress through this year, we will hear more specifics about what use cases are being included. And even if eBay is not like formally announcing that at the next check-in or something, like that's something I want to follow up on, just to see like how's that coming along, like what's being added in, what do we know for sure that we are protected on, since there's been changes in what's included and what's not included. So overall, definitely going in the right direction. Anything else we want to talk about with feedback?
I think that's pretty much it. I guess now we observe the change.
Yeah. It has happened.
Let's see if changes have to make change or any changes to the change.
Yes.
As time goes on.
Right.
Maybe not.
You got to give feedback about the feedback to see changes to the change. That's how it works. Yeah.
Exactly.
Clear as can be. Well, the next kind of thing that came along in this update was Renee Morin, who is, I think she's the Chief Sustainability Officer.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yep,
yes.
Yep.
She's great. But she went over some really cool stuff from the first ever Recommerce Day, which was May 21st, and some information from the Recommerce Report, which was really interesting. And a couple of little sound bites from her that I wrote down that I really liked. She said, most people are buying pre-loved to save money. There were a lot of cool stats breakdowns of why people are participating in Recommerce, and really to save money was a huge one, the biggest one. So that's something to keep in mind, when we're able to source really good inventory at a good cost and then pass along a really good deal to buyers. That is what they're looking for. And she said this is the era of Recommerce, and Recommerce is here to stay. So if you're not interested in Recommerce, it might be time to consider getting interested in Recommerce. I would say.
Well, that's the best way to rent an outfit. Buy it and then sell it.
That's right. Don't return it to the seller. Don't return it. Just
resell
sell it yourself.
Yeah.
Don't bother the seller at all.
Yeah.
Just leave the poor sellers alone.
Don't bother the seller. Be the seller.
Yeah.
That's a quotable quote right there.
Yeah. Don't be the bother. Be the seller.
Oh.
I love it. Be the next seller.
Even made better by Anna Packer.
Always editing everything you say. Sorry.
Formerly King Gaetano's code, revised but better by Anna Packer.
It's a sickness. We also heard, by the way, I'm not going to give a blow by blow of every single presentation, but I just wanted to mention, especially if people are going to go back and possibly watch this if they missed it.
This for sure.
Yes, but Jacob Hunter from eBay Ads came on and talked about marketing trends, which was interesting. Shay Heilman from Fitment came on and talked in depth about that, which is really about auto parts. And that was interesting too. I had never heard from him before.
eBay acquired Fitment.
Plus.
I forgot Plus. Yeah. As a company, which now it was a subscription based thing, which now they offer some different tier base for people that are able to use it for free for eBay Motors, which is really pretty cool. Someday we'll have a fitment guarantee on sneakers.
In case they're 2 sizes too big.
Yeah.
Just once in the whole run.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the same model or the same kind of thing that happened with Terapeak, where it was a subscription service?
Yeah.
And then
basically.
eBay kind of folded it in.
Yeah,
and now,
so I think they have billions of parts cataloged.
Oh my gosh.
Something like that. Yeah, right. And then now sellers get to use it, which is really good. It's kind of it's one of the benefits I heard is if you don't accept, it's kind of the return process, right? If it's guaranteed fit, why are you returning it kind of thing? Especially for parts, right? Especially if you fitted it to your car. And
I bet it's not because it was more salmon than mauve.
yeah.
I bet that doesn't happen in that category very much.
So yeah, I think that was cool.
Yeah.
Anything else after that? Also, too, make sure you check out the networking sessions. I believe the breakout, right? Well, they're not networking; they're breakout sessions. I want to shout out our homies.
Yes.
I'm gonna call them the peanut butter and jelly for eBay, which is Chuck Van Pelt and Jonathan Chard.
Yes, I actually have a couple notes about specific things.
Tease them a little bit about that so people can watch replay.
Okay, well, I just have to say, first of all, that their session, they've been doing a session together pretty frequently on these type of seller events.
Yep.
And it is always a good choice. There were over 900 people in their session when I was in there, out of the 2,600 that were on the whole event. And seriously, they have all the little golden nuggets of information and new product features and stuff that maybe aren't flashy enough to get a keynote spot, but there's really important things for our daily business. For example, just on today's, a couple things that they talked about that I loved were the lockable search features. So when you're doing research or you're searching solds on mobile, now you can lock some of the criteria so that you don't have to keep on now I want to search another thing, and I have to go open the filters and make sure it knows that I'm only looking at solds. Like you can lock the solds to be on so that everything you search, it's just showing you the solds, which is awesome.
Right. And also, by the way, we're like an hour after the check-in. It is already available on YouTube.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, that's great to know. And then another one that they talked about, this was really cool, also in mobile, they have bumped up the visibility of when a buyer is a repeat buyer.
Yep.
And,
I've noticed that recently.
Yes, which is so good to know, right? And then also they're working on showing other buyer info. Like basically you can click into the buyer and you will be able to see things like how many items they've bought from you, how much money they've spent with you in the past. You may have the option to send them a coupon right from in there.
Or like a custom buyer coupon code or something like that, right?
So some of that stuff's still in the works, but they showed a screenshot of what that may look like, and it was super cool. So I definitely would just recommend anytime you see Chuck and Chard together, go listen to what they're talking about.
Just like peanut butter and jelly. Every time you see it, it's always going to be good.
That's right. I wanted to mention, too, we also had a really cool interview with Michelle Warble, who's a VP of Seller Experience on the product side, and she was interviewing Dealing with Dalton. And so if you're on social media, you've probably seen him before. And he had some really good, insightful tips and answers in the interview. So definitely check that out. And then the biggest announcement of all, I would say, of the entire check-in was the announcement of our favorite event.
What is it, Glenn? The biggest event of the year. eBay Open, baby.
That's right. We all sound exceptionally excited. Actually, we are really excited, but they announced the dates, and those are September 25th and 26th. If you notice, only 2 days.
2 days.
This year. Jam-packed 2 days. Yep. And registration opens August 1st. So
and also, insider tip, the eBay Open website is already up. So don't tell anybody. We told you.
It totally won't be in our show notes or anything. But it's going to be virtual again. No surprise there, really, because there's so many more people that are able to attend that way. And they're kind of like leaning into their seller events that are led by sellers in all the different regional areas around the U.S. So eBay's basically partnering with like local kind of chapters of seller meetups to instead of doing like the studio events like they've done the last couple of years. Yep. So it's going to be just 2 days, but there will be loads of great content in the works. Ken and I may or may not know a little bit about that.
We'll see.
Which we're not authorized
Y'all
to
gotta
discuss
follow us
on
on IG.
Yeah. Just stick with us. Stick around with us if you want to hear what's up and coming as that develops.
So, I think we've covered a bunch of them. And also, if you want to see replays again, just want to reinforce that it will be on eBay's YouTube as well. And we might be able to follow us on Instagram, Seller Club Podcast, because we're going to be sharing some links of this certain topics or this replays in our favorites, so you could be able to click through that link and hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
That's right. And as soon as registration's open for eBay Open, we will be sharing that on Seller Club. So make sure you're following us, eBay for Sellers, eBay for Business Podcast, eBay Main Street. Just stay all the way informed about everything. And we will definitely keep you posted. But we'll be back to our kind of more regularly scheduled programming. But we just wanted to kind of take this opportunity to highlight some of those things that were announced today, and really to encourage you to go and watch the event if you were not able to attend live, because I feel like the more of these I have attended, the more value packed they are each time. Like this one was like really full of great announcements and insights into what's going on behind the scenes at eBay, which I love to hear about.
Anything else, Kenny?
That is a wrap.
All right. We will catch you on the next one. See ya.
Peace.
Bye.